what do you really want? I think so often when we look at the things that we do think that we want, we tend to look at it from a very physical perspective. We tend to look at it as, oh, I see this item in the physical world and I want that item. I want to hold something in my hand. I want to almost have something physically. But I'm really starting to understand that I don't think that's really what we want. I think that in almost anything that we could desire, it's not necessarily the owning of an item or the experiencing of a certain thing that we want, but it's rather the experiencing of the emotions of having that thing or experiencing the emotions of going through a specific circumstance. You know, one of the best examples I could give is, I think so many people often look for like romantic partners and they look for friends and people that they could relate to, things like that. But I think that's almost errorful in its way because I don't think that's what people really want, even though it can be something that you want. But I think that what people really want is almost the emotions of having those things. And it seems like the same thing, but I'm starting to understand that it's not. I'm starting to understand that having something physically and then having that same thing from an emotional standpoint, it's not the same thing. It's like if you close your eyes and you try to imagine, your ideal life, your where you want to be at, and then you experience those emotions and then you open your eyes, it's like it's recognizing that the almost what you pictured in your mind and what you felt are not the same thing. So I'm really just starting to understand that so often we look at things from such a worldly and like an earthly perspective in terms of what we want, when I really don't think that's what we do want. Because I think that any emotion that we want, it's something that we can give to ourselves at any point in time. If you want to feel better, or not even better, but if you want to feel good about yourself, if you want to feel happy, if you want to feel positive, if you want to be present in the moment, if you want to feel excited, if you want to feel deep, like you know what I mean. If you want to feel these things, it's something that you can give yourself at any point in time. It's not necessitated by a certain circumstance. Because like I've said this in other videos, but you can only control you. You can only control what's inside yourself. You can influence the outside world, you can influence the external world, but it's not up to us. That's up to God. Just in the way that God gave us free will. He didn't give us free will over everything around us. He gave us free will over ourselves. So it's really about understanding that in having free will over yourself, in having control over yourself, you then get to make the decisions of how you want to feel. And that's not to say that, the external world will never be able to influence your internal. But in the same way that we can influence the external can influence the internal, but it can't control it. The outside world can't influence or can't control what's on the inside. We ultimately have the position of controlling what's inside. So I'm really just starting to understand that in anything that we want, it's not necessarily us having the thing or experiencing the certain circumstance. It's really about feeling what we want to feel. But those feelings are something we could give to ourselves right now. It's not conditional. I think that in making these kinds of things, in making those emotions and those feelings conditional, we then almost restrict ourselves from having the same thing that we want. It's almost in the sense that we could give ourselves anything that we want at any point in time, but we're stopping ourselves from having it because of something that, like I said, we can't control. So I'm really just starting to understand how much of a disparity there is between the emotional and the spiritual and then also the physical. I'm really starting to understand that so often we look at things from such an earthly perspective, when in reality, that's not what it is. The earthly perspective is really just it's an illusion. It's not all that there is to existence. And I'm starting to understand how much higher the spiritual level of things is than just the physical level of things. I'm really starting to understand how much of a difference there is between the two. And I'm starting to understand what it says in the Bible, and that we should not focus on the things of this world, but be transformed by this renewing of your mind and existing from a level of the spirit. I'm starting to understand that that's not just in the sense that you should, kind of ignore everything around you. And in the sense that, like, the world is not as important as the spirit, even though those things are true. But I'm starting to understand that literally means that there's more to it. You could have something in the spiritual world that you don't necessarily have on the physical world yet. And you can have something on, well, no, I guess the opposite doesn't really fully make sense. But I'm really just starting to understand how much of a disparity there is between the two. And that if we really want to experience an emotion, which I honestly think is the root of a lot of the desires that we have, it's not necessarily holding something in your hand, but rather experiencing something in your heart. I think that if you really want to have those emotions, it's something that you can give to yourself right now. And I think that in part, experiencing those emotions in the moment, in right now, right here, is almost what allows the circumstance that you then connected with that emotion to appear in your physical world, to appear in your physical life. I have a Bible verse that goes with this pretty well. I might have used this in one of my other videos, but I think it still really resonates with my message here. It's taken from James 4 verse 2, and it says, "You desire but do not have, so you kill. You covet." Wait, hold on. My handwriting's a bit bad. Oh, you covet but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. So I think a lot of what we want, a lot of our desires, it's not something that we're looking for from the external world. It's something that we're looking for on the spiritual level. And it's something that we're looking for from God. I think that anything that we try to substantiate in the external world, it's like trying to change an effect by changing an effect. It's like trying to gain an effect by changing an effect. And I don't think that makes sense. In order to change an effect, you need to change the cause. And I think that cause for anything physical is something spiritual. So I'm starting to understand that if we really want to substantiate any of the positivity that we want to see in our day-to-day lives, it's about changing the spirit. It's about renewing your spirit and renewing your mind rather than trying to renew the external world. Because the external world, the world that you experience, it's reflective of who you are. It's a reflective of your internals. You know, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. But that also means that the things that you look at are dependent on the way that you look at things. So I think that if we change the way that we look at things, if we change the perspective that we go into the world through, which is which is truthfully the changing of the spirit, if we change that, then that's what allows what we look at to change as well. So I hope you took something from this video. Yeah, thank you for watching.